This is independent geopolitical analysis and personal opinion only. All information is based on publicly available reports. I could be wrong. Everyone is focused on Iran's ability to control the Strait of Hormuz, but almost no one is asking a more uncomfortable question. What if that control is already slipping? Not because of a direct military defeat, but because of something quieter, more strategic, and potentially more permanent. While headlines talk about threats and blockades, there are signs that the United States may already be reshaping the rules of the game in that region. And if that's true, then everything we think we know about Hormuz might be outdated. So the real question is Iran actually losing its grip on one of the most important oil choke points in the world? To understand what's happening, we need to zoom out for a moment. The Strait of Hormuz is not just another waterway. It is one of the most critical energy corridors on Earth. A significant portion of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow passage between Iran and Oman. At its narrowest point, it is only about 33 kilometers wide, which makes it extremely vulnerable to disruption. For decades, Iran has built its strategy around this geography. According to publicly available reports from defense analysts and maritime security agencies, Iran has developed asymmetric capabilities designed specifically for this environment. Fast attack boats, naval mines, anti-ship missiles, and coastal surveillance systems all play a role. The logic is simple. Iran does not need to dominate the strait in a traditional sense. It only needs to threaten it. Even the perception of danger can disrupt global markets. We have seen this pattern before with tanker seizures, drone incidents, and rising tensions. Each time, oil prices react almost instantly. But recently, something subtle has started to change, and it is not getting the same level of attention. Here is what I think is really happening. The United States is not just reacting to threats in the Strait of Hormuz. It is actively trying to reduce those threats before they materialize. According to publicly available reports from defense institutions and international maritime coalitions, there has been a noticeable increase in United States naval activity in the region. This includes additional naval deployments, enhanced surveillance operations, and deeper coordination with allied forces. But the more important shift is not just the presence, it is the approach. The United States appears to be building a layered security environment around the strait. This includes escorting commercial vessels, improving real-time intelligence sharing, and integrating regional partners into a more unified maritime framework. This is not just about responding to incidents after they happen. It is about shaping the environment in advance so that those incidents become harder to execute. That is a very different strategy. In a choke point like Hormuz, uncertainty is a form of power. If you can create doubt, you can influence behavior. But if that uncertainty starts to disappear, the leverage tied to it begins to weaken. That may be the underlying objective. But here is where it gets more interesting. The real competition in this space is not purely military. It is psychological and economic. Iran's leverage has always depended on the idea that it could disrupt the strait if necessary. Not that it will, but that it might. That possibility forces global markets to react. It increases insurance costs, shifts energy prices, and creates pressure on governments. However, if the strait becomes more predictable and secure, that perceived risk begins to decline. Over time, the threat loses credibility, and in geopolitics, credibility is everything. There is also a broader regional dimension to consider. The United States is not acting alone. There is increasing coordination with regional actors such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain. These countries have a direct interest in keeping maritime routes open and stable. According to publicly available reports, they are becoming more integrated into security frameworks that focus on maritime protection. This creates a network effect where multiple actors contribute to stability rather than relying on a single force. That changes the dynamics significantly. Iran's strategy tends to work best in fragmented environments where responses are slow or divided. A coordinated system reduces that fragmentation. It shortens reaction times, limits ambiguity, and narrows the window for escalation. Over time, this can gradually shift the balance without any major confrontation. So what happens next? Iran is unlikely to simply step back and accept a reduced role. If its leverage in the strait is being challenged, it may look for alternative ways to maintain influence. This could involve indirect actions, limited disruptions, or activities that are difficult to attribute clearly. At the same time, Iran has to be cautious. A major escalation could trigger a direct response that it may want to avoid. This creates a situation where actions are likely to be calibrated, small enough to avoid escalation, but noticeable enough to remind others that the risk still exists. On the other side, the United States is likely to continue its current approach, not through dramatic announcements, but through steady reinforcement, more coordination, more surveillance, and deeper integration with regional partners. This is a slow-moving process. It does not produce immediate headlines, but it can have long-term effects. The result is a kind of ongoing competition that exists somewhere between conflict and stability. Each side adjusts, tests limits, and observes reactions. Over time, small changes accumulate, and eventually one side may realize that the balance has shifted more than expected. If this analysis is correct, there are a few things worth watching in the near future. One is the behavior of commercial shipping. If tankers continue to move through the strait without major disruption despite ongoing tensions, that suggests growing confidence in the security environment. Another signal is the reaction of energy markets. If volatility decreases and risk premiums stabilize, it may indicate that the perceived threat is being reduced. It is also important to pay attention to smaller incidents rather than major events. Minor disruptions or unclear incidents could be attempts to test the system or reintroduce uncertainty. Finally, diplomatic messaging can provide clues. If regional actors begin expressing greater confidence in maritime stability, it may reflect deeper shifts that are not immediately visible. In geopolitics, public statements often follow changes that have already taken place behind the scenes. This is independent analysis only, not news. I could be wrong, and I encourage critical thinking. If you want deeper geopolitical breakdowns beyond the headlines, consider subscribing. What is your take on this situation? Is this a real shift in power or just a temporary phase? Share your perspective. All information in this video is based on publicly available reports and represents personal opinion and analysis only.